Good 225 approaching us, and I think somehow we have to get there. I just watching after going through the Christmas time with my family. I just watch Nelly the Narcissist. I shared her on my community section. I came across this YouTube creator by watching this very short, funny video and not so funny video, which has probably the most views of her. Yeah, it's a humoristic video, but now she's making serious content. And today I also made video about archetypes again. And now I want to speak about three things, and that is narcissistic abuse, archetypes, and spirituality, and how these relate together. See, if I had a blackboard or a whiteboard behind me, I would now make a beautiful drawing right there. And I would like picture you coming from here. And in this spot, there is the shared fantasy of the narcissist. A fantasy, okay? A magic world. The narcissists need a lot of magic in their life. Because nothing comes free, everything is transactional. And reality is just very boring, and reality is threatening. Reality is an attack. Reality must, in reverse, be condemned, held back, driven back out of the cult. And we need to protect the shared fantasy, right? So when you're coming out of narcissistic abuse, you're coming from a place of a shared fantasy. You're coming from a fantasy defense. So there was a lot of fantasy, a lot of magic that at times was confusing for you. You also was in a relationship that is based on, it is an infantile relationship. It's not based on independence and strengthening your partner and helping the partner to give and evolve the independence of them. It rather was creating more dependence on both sides. So it was a relationship of parenting each other, okay? And destabilizing each other, because it always needs this component of being dependent of each other and parenting each other. So now, when you're out of this, you're out of the fantasy, you're out of codependency, you're out of parenting, you're out of gaslighting. Now you perceive it as an awakening, because you suddenly are confronted with yourself, with your true self. You will feel a very strong need to individuate from this, to develop independency. You need to do everything yourself now. You feel this fantasy going away as very freeing your spirit, but then what you're confronted with will be a reality. And ultimately, it can be that you have lost a lot of social contacts. Maybe you have lost contact to your children, to your pets, to everyone you loved. The narcissist might have used coercive control when they are sociopathic. They might cancel the entrance to your only financial sources, your bank account. So you're hitting kind of rock bottom. This is reality. And the fantasy is away. The parenting relationship is away. And The dopamine control is away because the narcissistic relationship, the narcissistic family cult is also the coercion in there works through punishment and reward. So they train everybody to support the shared fantasy through dopamine control. And this means, especially when you have confronted the narcissist in the discard with who they are, they will get maliciously angry and rageful, maliciously envious on you, and try to dysregulate you as far as possible. I made a lot of videos about how they try to make you look like the problem. And yeah, this is where you're coming from, and this is where you're arriving. So you're coming to reality, and this is why now you are pushed towards certain places, certain ideas, and basically the danger for you will be nihilism, because now you're faced with reality, you're isolated from all your past, you're confronted with reality, you're stripped of a lot of possessions, of material possessions. Now you're faced with nihilism, because nihilism is that danger that Nietzsche also realized in the world. And nihilism means basically a rational, calculating approach to life. So there's no external purpose, there is no external God. I don't allow myself a primitive defense mechanism through fantasy, like where I came from the narcissistic relationship. So I'm left with nothing. Nihilism, okay? And it can lead to being indifferent towards life and depressive, basically. So there is nothing, there is this empty void. And the only ways out of this will be another fantasy, a psychotic fantasy, a psychosis. Insanity is a way out of nihilism. But there is, fortunately, another way out of it. And this is what Carl Gustav Jung discovered and suggests us. And it is the archetypes, the individuation process, and learning to understand symbolism and about synchronicities, which means you understand that nihilism is not everything. Nihilism is just something that modern society, which uses only one half of the brain and being too rational, basically, and alienates the human being from its original roots in nature and in archetypes. So Jung suggests to bring that back, and by the way, Nietzsche unconsciously also tried to do this by proposing the Dionysic principle. He saw Dionysus as the missing link for us, as a connection that the Greek knew about, but even the Greek started to focus on the Apollinic side, which is the rational approach. And it rips us of our our spiritual connection. And Nietzsche called it Dionysic side of perception of life, and Jung saw this as our connection to the collective subconsciousness where the archetypes are found. So let me get back to my agenda, my main topic. When you're coming from this narcissistic abuse, you're stripped of the fantasy of the parenting, infantile relationship, all this gaslighting around you, and you find yourself confronted with emptiness, with nihilism. Now, the way out of nihilism could be insanity, but you don't want to create another grandiose fantasy for yourself. I'm not judging anybody here, but uh, some of the people who speak about spirituality or being a chosen one and talk to the chosen people or shamanism, whatever they use as spirituality, I see it as another form of spiritual narcissism or a self delusion into a fantasy defense where you just escape in another fantasy. But it's a thin line, because there's also people who do the same thing in an authentic way. So you need to have your own discernment. And it's not about other people, it's about what you do, what you perceive, and in what direction you want to go. But I feel looking at the whole world going narcissistic, psychopathic, grandiose, autocratic, whatever, it's really about retreating, detoxing from all of this, disconnecting ourselves, and it's very hard, from all these developments, and just stay rooted and grounded in some way with our nature and the archetypes. And this is what Jung gave us. There is something beyond the nihilistic worldview. I watched a documentary about frontline war recently, and the man who made the documentary said, in foxholes there are no atheists. So in a fighting position at the front line, there's no atheists. I have no problems with atheism. It's less dangerous than some fundamentalist religious groups. I'm not judging it, but when you go through a lot of suffering, when you're confronted with this Job experience, like Job in the Bible, that you are suddenly cast out of the sky, out of paradise, out of the shared fantasy, all your possessions are gone, everything is gone. You are faced with nihilism, emptiness, void. A lot of people then turn to God, and they feel like now they need God or Jesus. And yeah, so sometimes I believe that a lot of atheists are just have not suffered enough. But it's okay if you're not suffering and you're an atheist, then just keep on doing what you're doing. It's good not to suffer, and if you're happy, you're happy. It's all good. I'm not trying to suggest anyone anything or judge people here. Just sharing my thoughts and experiences. So yeah, as I suggested in one of my videos, that I can give people Ariadne's thread out of the maze of the narcissist by creating another narration, an alternative narration. Jung handed to us Ariadne's thread to connect us to something that can lead us out of nihilism, because there is something there is something more than nihilism in the world. Nietzsche was desperately trying to save us from this in his way, and he suggested the Übermensch and eternal recurrence. But Jung found another very good escape from that, and it is not fantasy. It is our ancestors and the archetypes and symbolism, which can help us to find some purpose beyond the emptiness, the void, or the insanity. Okay, so this is what I think dreams, symbols, and archetypes are there for. But also on YouTube, we share videos, we share fantasies, we share images of ourselves, and they get inflated and inflated and inflated the more people invest in this fantasy. So we always have to be careful. And yeah, reality and nothingness most likely is the best protection of narcissism and sociopath and whatever dark tetrade threats might be lurking out there, try to trigger us, try to cling to our energy. So let's get to 2025 in a safe way and change the world by changing ourselves.